started. Are we recording? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Clarkdale Town Council meeting on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025 at 3 p.m. in the Clark Memorial Clubhouse. Vice Mayor Hunsetter? Here. Councilmember Babbitt Pierce?
Present.
Councilmember O'Neill?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Present.
And please note that Mayor Prudhomme-Bauer is here. We have a quorum. Item 3 under the agenda is public comment. The town council invites the public to provide comments at this time. Members of the town council may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and discussion or decision at a later time. If you're interested in making public comment, just raise your hand, come on up to the microphone. You have 5 minutes to speak, stating your name and if you're a Clarkdale resident. And if you're online, just make put a note in the chat for our town clerk who will bring you in for your comments. So do we have anybody interested in giving public comment at this time? Okay, seeing none coming up to the microphone. Is there anybody online? Just Ruth. Okay. Just Ruth. Okay, let's go on to item 4, which is reports in our packet and available online, our departmental reports, building permit report, grants reports, magistrate court reports, park and rec report, police department, Verde Valley Humane Society, water and wastewater report, and finance report. Do council members have any comments about any of the reports that were submitted? I think it's just important to note, if you get time, please take a look at the finance report. In particular, as you will note, our local sales tax revenue, we are down again for a second month in the row. I think we're down, what did you say, 14% year over year? That continues to show a trend of probably consumer confidence right now. We should be fairly high in revenue, in local sales tax revenue, because it is that time of year where people should be visiting and stuff. We know our springtime is that way, and we're just seeing some not really positive numbers in that area. So just take a moment and look at that. There's no questions on our departmental reports. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on consent. This afternoon, we have the approval of the minutes from our April 8th, 2025 meeting, and the annual shelter service agreement with the Verde Valley Humane Society. Do either one of these want to be pulled for discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the 2 items on consent.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce to approve the consent agenda items A and B as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay. Okay, that means Verde Valley Humane Society, we just approved the contract, okay? I saw you both out there. Okay, let's move on to new business, which is 6A is the 2026 congressionally directed spending. This is to discuss, consider, and act upon a request by staff to approve the submission of an application for fiscal year 2026 congressionally directed spending in the range of 3.2 to $3.5 million with a local match of between 860,000 and 1.1 million, depending on the awarding agency for the construction of the replacement of the 89A potable well storage tank. So this is the 89A storage tank replacement. And we have Grants Manager DK Green is speaking to this topic. Thank you,
very much.
DK.
Thank you, Mayor and Council and citizens, residents. Yeah, I'm very excited to bring this application forward. This supports 3 of our strategic goal areas. Goal Area 1 to enhance the quality of life for residents, businesses, and visitors to Clarkdale. Goal Area 4 to plan for the maintenance and growth of quality infrastructure that is sustainable and resilient. And Goal Area 6 to adopt water conservation strategies that prevent negative aquifer impacts and no degradation of Verde River flows. Per our integrated water and sewer master plan, the 89A water storage tank has been identified as an existing system deficiency. The master plan states that the existing 89A tank, which currently has a capacity of just over 422,000 gallons, should be replaced due to recommendations from ADEQ. The tank has exceeded its usable life, and its wooden beams, wooden columns, and wooden shake roof are deteriorating. ADEQ also requires that community water systems provide potable water storage for average daily demand during the peak month, plus 1 fire flow event. However, due to long lead times, supply chain interruptions, and extended times for repairs, it is recommended that the town have a potable water storage capacity for 3 days of average daily demand during the peak month, as well as a fire flow event to decrease the possibility of water emergency and crisis events. Design work to replace the tank is already underway through fiscal year 24. Congressionally directed spending, and that was an award of $1 million. And like I said, design is already underway on that. This new round of congressionally directed spending, or CDS funding, if awarded, would complete construction and installation of a new steel, either 1 to about 1.5 million gallon tank at the 89A location. The deadline for this application is this Friday. The application is complete. It's already been written and will be submitted upon your approval. The project is estimated to cost $4.3 million. The CDS funding source, we have one of 3 choices, either through the EPA, the USDA, or the Army Corps of Engineers. And the local match that is required varies between 20 to 25%, depending on which of those sources. And we actually don't get to select the source. It is selected for us, but it would, if we were to be awarded, it would be one of those 3 sources. So the project cost of $4.3 million would break down for a local match of either between 860 to just under 1.1 million, 860,000 to $1.1 million. The funding ask, or the funding request, would be between 3.2 to just under $3.5 million. So a lot of information there, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the project.
Are there any questions for DK? Yes, Lisa.
Do you have a supplier for the tank at this time?
As far as I know, yes. I do not know who that is. I could check with.
Oh,
our
it's no
public
big deal. I
works
just
team,
want, you
but
know,
yes,
yeah. Thank you.
absolutely.
Any other questions for DK? Yes.
I'm just excited that we are moving forward on this project so quickly. Water supply is something I lose sleep about at night. So not only is this tank need to be replaced, but also increasing capacity so greatly is really important. So thank you for the 24 application. Thank you for this 26 application, and continuing to keep this project moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to add the gap in the years between fiscal year 24 for design and now fiscal year 26 for construction. There was a delay through what's called continued resolution at the federal level. This was a brand new project. We had 2 other projects that were put through for fiscal year 25. They are going to also be put through for fiscal year 26. And you had approved those last year, so I'll be reapplying for those. This is a brand new project for this fiscal year, for this round of congressionally directed spending, but it is very high. And in fact, it's top of our priority list for the 3 projects that are going through.
Right.
Do we have a sense of timing when we should hear about this?
If I recall, it could take upwards of 6 to 9 months before we hear anything, and there's typically several rounds of discussions, so potentially upwards of 12 months before we hear for sure whether or not we were selected.
Additionally, they do need to adopt a federal budget in order for these appropriations to happen. So if we continue operating under continuing resolution, it doesn't kick in, number one. The other thing is, and we learned this during the 24 process, is once the Congress approves us for the appropriation, that then triggers us having to apply directly to the agency that was chosen for us. You know, we're pretty much guaranteed, but you still have to put together the entire application, and that takes a lot of time. And I think last year we worked, University of Southern California, did some consulting with us to make sure our application was on point so that we had no delays in receiving that money. But if you recall, that project is for our water campus that includes the tank, redundant arsenic treatment, a new pump station for Panorama, a lab. So there's a lot of elements, redrilling 89A well and connecting it. So
Right.
there are a lot of elements to that $1 million grant, the design project. And so we kind of cherry picked one of the things being designed and are applying for construction of that. And if you recall, I think I shared earlier that we asked them to design it as components so that we don't have to go do the entire project at once, because that would be very cost prohibitive. So this is an example of one of the components. We expect by this time next year, that design will be done. And that's about the same timing that we have the potential to hear about this grant.
So it's a maybe. I mean, it's a real strong maybe if the federal government gets a budget. And then it goes through the process of determining if it's going to get funded and then where it's going to get funded from.
Yes.
So, yeah. Our challenge is, I think, when we get it, because I'm always very confident that we're very good at getting it, is where do we come up with the match? And that's going to be our,
Right, DK did some research about, can we use the design as our match? And in some situations you could, but because the design was federal funding, you can't match federal with federal. So that won't work. That's off the table. But we just went over fund balance. If we did every project that's in the hopper right now, and remember, some of our CIP projects are duplicative because they're crossing over fiscal years. So if you took all that out, we're sitting at a minimum of $3 million in fund balance, plus those things that were kind of duplicative. So we definitely have the money in fund balance to pay our share, but we would always look for local grants and state grants first.
for
But
match on those.
We do have the match, so I just wanted to reassure you about, if we get it, we have the money to do it.
And I did find out as well on that note that WIFA funding is available if we were to be selected for that. It is eligible to be matching funds
Oh, okay.
for that type of project. So
Okay.
we can certainly go to WIFA for a matching grant.
Okay. That's great.
Mm.
Thank you. So options, I like that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I drive past that tank probably at least once every day. Is it still storing water for the town, and is it viable water at this point? We just want to increase capacity and mitigate the rotting that is starting
Right.
to happen, correct?
Exactly. I mean, it's a very old tank. And so it has not been a directive from ADEQ. It's not been something from a regulatory standpoint where they said, you must do this. It was a recommendation. And that's normally kind of how these things happen, is the first few years you're getting a recommendation. So we take that seriously and we got on it and are starting a process, but it's still viable. It's still passing inspections. It's still meeting water quality standards, everything it needs to do, but it is not a long-term solution from a quality standpoint. And also is not a long-term solution from a size standpoint. And we contemplated just building another small one and then renovating this one, if you recall. And the quote to renovate this was $900,000 to put a new roof on it. And we're like, that's crazy. We'll just build a new one. But it is $4 million. You know, they're very expensive, but it makes a lot more sense to build a much bigger one because I think our current one is 400,000
F1,
gallons.
22,000 gallons.
Yeah, so this will give us 3 times, you know, and more of storage capacity, which is really important to our system.
Do you happen to recall what year it was built?
I have
Uh,
no idea.
1917.
1917. So it's more than 100 years old.
It's a very old, well,
Yeah.
storage tank, yes.
Probably time.
And if we don't do something, you know, either replace it, yeah, then we'd have a problem. We'd be under somebody else's time frame to get it done. And this way, at least we can build our movement is being done on it. They can see that, so they won't, you know, put pressure on us to get it done yesterday. Yeah.
I do appreciate the proactive approach.
Yeah. Well, and it's a part of our whole water campus that we're trying to do, as we've talked about. So this is a good start to it. Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll take a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the submission of an application for fiscal year 2026 congressionally directed spending in the amount of 3.2 to 3.5 million with a local match of 860,000 to 1.1 million, depending on the awarding agency, for the construction of the replacement of the 89A potable water storage tank, and authorize the town manager to execute all documents related to this award.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Council Member Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Council Member O'Neill to approve the submission of an application for fiscal year 2026 congressionally directed spending as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you so much, DK, on this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on to item 6B, financial auditing services. This is to discuss, consider, and act upon the proposal for financial auditing services for fiscal year ending 2020, June 30th, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. And we have Finance Director Joe Duffy here to speak on this topic. It's an exciting topic.
It is. Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be in front of you today. As you know, on February 15th, we went out for an RFP basically request for proposals for auditing services. We closed those on March 13th. And as a council, you each individually reviewed and scored each proposal. So you scored them. And each of these proposals, the difference this year versus our prior year's audit is we're asking them to do an annual comprehensive financial report, which is a step above what we've just been doing, which is just a financial report. And the reason that a community should do these things is, one, it's just more transparency, more data for your community to review. We have some 10-year schedules, and it's what most of the cities and towns nowadays are doing. And the other benefit is that we can submit it to GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. And if it meets their quality standards, we actually get an award for that. So in my history, there's only been 2 years that I haven't received the award. And 1 year was because it was the first year we submitted. So it's not a slam dunk, but I'm confident with the quality of the town's financial system that we will receive it or come really, really close the first year and probably get it the second year. So that's a bonus, but it's a little bit additional. So back to this, we did receive 6 proposals. The last time, Colby and Powell, who has done a really good job for the town of Clarkdale over the years, but they've been doing it for 16 years. And it's a good practice to go out about every 5 years and just to get a fresh set of eyes on your accounting system and all your records. So, and that's why I recommended doing this more than anything, was just it's time to bring in a new firm to look at it, in my opinion. But Colby and Powell also did submit a proposal for this. For the firms I've worked with before, the only two that I haven't is that Abbo and Heinfield Meach. All the others I've worked with before, they're very quality firms. They all do a really good job. I've, as a finance director, never had any issues with any of those four. So the firm that got the highest score, and I do want to thank council for taking the time to review all these proposals and scoring. I know it was a lot of work. And the firm with the highest score was Heinfield Meach, or Hinton Burdick, I'm sorry. And they had a combined score of 88.4. And so, and our scoring criteria, just so the public will know, is one we gave 10 points for just general information about their firm. We gave 20 points for their experience and qualifications, 20 points for their key positions, 20 points for their project approach, and 30 points for pricing. So there's a total 100 available points for each of the firms. And like I said, Hindenburg was 88.4. The next lower was Colby and Powell of 84.4. So with that, I have worked with Hindenburg before. I am familiar with the principal of the firm, and I feel they'll do a fine job for the town of Clarkdale.
Okay, comments? We have a recommendation. Yes, Marnie.
I was intrigued that one of these firms was using AI to do some of the
Mhm.
processing, and I
Right.
could see that being a real positive. And also, there could be some things that are not great about that. So could you just speak to that a little bit, since we did ask them to detail their processes?
Yeah, and that firm did contact me, and basically their approach is to do your audit remotely, which you can do. But I think it's also important to come and actually physically see the property you're working at, see the building, see the government. One of the firms just testing fixed assets, like we add something to our wastewater treatment plant. A good firm was going to go drive down there and look at that new asset and go, yep, they did buy it. You can't do that remotely. So my personal opinion, yeah, it can be done. Is it the best? Are they going to be able to do a better job than the other firms who are physically on site? I personally say no. So, and a lot of the stuff, yeah, we could send them records and data for them to review and get a clean audit. There's no issues there. But them sitting with us and walking through the processes and showing how we do everything from our cash receipts to our cash disbursements, how we record our approval process, that needs that human interaction still, I think.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments? Yes, Lisa.
I just thought that firm, even though it wasn't stated in their proposal, it would cause more work here for town staff to supply them with things that they're not accustomed to supplying because people are sitting here. So
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
We
And,
made excuse me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we made huge progress this year in digitizing a lot of our records, but we're not 100% there, but that would increase our workload.
Well, and also, don't you think that you build a relationship with them, at least if you see them once or twice face to face? It's sometimes it seems a little hard being that far away. They don't kind of know us. And, what the layout of our town is, what it's, these old buildings, as you talk about fixed assets, you're talking about, some of this is pretty old.
Right.
And the like. So it's just nice to, because you do build a relationship with them.
You do. And you rely on their professionalism to help you and guide you. I always think that we're paying them a lot of money to do this service for us. I try to get as much out of them as I can. It's a one-time a year I can talk at the 30,000 foot level, but they also interview the manager, and Mayor, they'll interview you if they're doing their job correctly. And those are important discussions that you have.
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I also noticed that there was a pretty wide range of how long they thought the audit was going to take. There were definitely a couple of outliers, and that everybody else was kind of in the same range for
Right.
the amount of time.
Right.
Can you speak to that at all?
So in my past, most of the audits I've done in communities this size, it's about 3 days of field work. A lot of times though, they'll come out before the end of the fiscal year and do one day of like internal control type questionnaires and get all that done. Generally, they plan for 4 to 5 days worth of field work, but we usually have the records in such good shape, and I don't want to brag, but usually everything's pretty clean. And so they can get out of here in 3.5 days on average. So I would say it's usually about at the max a week, average is about 3 days for their field work. But that's only one part of the process. Then they go back and they prepare the preliminary financial reports, give us the management discussion analysis, and then we have work to do as staff to continue to get that report done. And with the annual comprehensive financial report, we've got all the statistical sections and stuff to update. So when they walk out the door, we have a lot more work to do. They have to review that, and then we start passing drafts back and forth. So it's still a process.
Thank you.
Great, great. Any other questions for Joe?
I think I know the answer to this already because I know I asked it, but I thought it was interesting that in year 27, 28, the cost went up considerably. And I guess that was due to an additional requirement that's required financially.
Yeah, that's the municipal court audit, and it's their minimum accounting standards audit that's required every 3 years. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that the council accept the proposal of the firm they determined to be the most qualified to perform the required services and authorize the town manager to execute all documents.
Okay. Yeah.
To clarify, that is Hinton Burdock. Yes. Okay. Just making sure. I'll second.
Enfield, okay. We have a motion on the table to accept the proposal from, is it Hinton?
Hinton Burdick.
Excuse me, Hinton Burdock. And PLLC, excuse me, to accept the proposal from Hinton Burdock for the amount outlined in the proposal and authorize the town manager to execute all documents. Is that correct? Okay. It's been moved by Lisa O'Neill and seconded by, I forget the second. Marnie, thank you, Marnie. I thought it was you. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. It'll be interesting to have a new audit firm. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to item 6C. This is a mutual aid agreement between the Yavapai Apache Nation and the town of Clarkdale for mutual use of law enforcement. This is a discuss, consider, and act upon this agreement between the Yavapai Apache Nation and the town of Clarkdale for personnel and resources, law enforcement personnel and resources. And Chief Randy Taylor is here to speak to this. Wow, we are here. Yay.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a long, long road. Afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and this esteemed council members. As the mayor mentioned, I'd like to recommend that council approve the mutual aid agreement between the Yavapai Apache Nation and town of Clarkdale for mutual aid for law enforcement personnel and resources. This is under goal 1 of the town's strategic plan. Little background on what I'm asking, what about this MOU. When I came here almost 13 years ago, we had an MOU with the tribe, and we operated under that MOU for, well, until just recently. And it became somewhat problematic as calls started to increase in intensity and frequency. And as a result of that, we took a longer look at the way the MOU is written. And there was some wording in the MOU that was problematic, and it caused us some hesitation, as well as our legal counsel said that we might not be covered and there might be liability for the town. So we went to the tribe through the mayor and town manager, and I guess council as well, for their work. And Tanya Lewis, the chair of the tribe, she and some of her staff met with us, and we devised a MOU that was acceptable to hopefully the council, as well as our legal counsel. And additionally, over the years, they have struggled to staff personnel over here. They've tried, certainly have had lots of conversations about it, but the majority of their calls are closer to Camp Verde, and so that's where most of their staffing is. As you know, they've increased housing over here in our area, which has also been problematic. They haven't been able to put staffing over here. So as a result of that, we kind of added a fee structure to help with I don't know, somewhat reimbursement for our services, and for the time that our officers aren't on the streets in Clark. We consider that part of Clarkdale, but of course it's a sovereign nation. So when we're not within the confines of our city limits, we're looking for some type of reimbursement. And maybe that might help them also to get some staffing over here. So with that, I'll answer any questions. Hopefully I covered most of it.
Laura, then Marnie.
I'm really happy to see that we've come to an agreement with the nation and that we will be able to continue to provide services. And I think that through this process, I think it's been very clear to everybody the value of that for both of our communities. I think that's really clear. I think we brought this up in a conversation with you. Is there an opportunity to communicate to the Clarkdale community of the Yavapai Apache Nation that the Clarkdale police are authorized to come on to the reservation, because it is a sovereign nation? And I think we just want to be clear to the residents that this has come from, that this comes from both sides, that this is a mutual aid agreement.
Somebody else asked me that question today, and we actually did receive the signed, executed copy of this agreement from the nation this morning. So if you all approve it today, we will countersign it and return it to them. And when I return it to them, I will have a conversation with them about, hey, can we discuss ways that we can make sure we get this message out? And I have some ideas, but I would love to talk to you offline about any ideas that you have. But I absolutely think that we need to make sure that the residents know that we are legally, not only allowed, but obligated now to be there when we agree to be there. So we're very happy with what we came up with, because we were very concerned that there was some ambiguity in the last agreement. It really talked about being backup, but most often we weren't backup, we were primary. And I didn't feel like our agreement covered us being primary. And then Stephen did a review of that and agreed. And so we're very happy with where we've ended up with this agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure we can do some type of a public service announcement
Yeah.
in conjunction with them. But I'm here to tell you that, unless we're wearing their patch, they really struggle with seeing our
Right.
authority.
And I understand that. And I guess it's just one of the reasons that I think if we can work together with them to communicate as best we can. I know that you still may experience resistance at time, but I think trying to do as much as we can at this time is just going to be beneficial to our officers and their officers if they come here to help us. I mean, it is a mutual aid agreement. No.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
We
Thank you.
do call them.
Mhm.
Yes. Marnie?
I have two questions. I feel like the first one was kind of answered, but I care deeply about the health and safety of all of our officers. I know that all of us do. And so there were concerns in the previous MOU that we might not be able to take care of our officers the way that we would want to. So everything in this MOU allows us to care for our officers the same way we would, whether they were responding to a call on First South than if they are on the reservation.
Yes, according to our legal counsel, we're all in agreement.
Yeah, the legal review definitely covered them, and that was really our whole objective was to do some clarification about dispatch, because the way it was previously written is we were only authorized if their chief authorized us to be there. Well, when our guys are being dispatched through two different dispatch stations, PSAs, that really became unclear. And I felt very strongly that we needed to take that out of the agreement. It needed to be purely, if we get dispatched, we're authorized to be there, end of story. And we did get that.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, it did go through legal review. So we have legal sign off on it. But subsequently, I also ran it through our risk pool just to 100% make sure that if something, negative happened involving one of our officers, even on sovereign lands, were we covered, and we are.
Excellent. Thank you. And then I read the entire agreement and it just stood out to me that basically we'll provide mutual aid when we can. And if for some reason we can't, we're doing something else. Does that happen very often? Do we get calls for mutual aid from anybody that we provide mutual aid to and we're too busy to respond?
It happens, but I can't tell you how often. Often may not be the adjective I'd use, but it
Mhm.
does happen. Cottonwood, we've asked for them to come before. They haven't been able to. We've asked for Jerome, and they've also asked for us, and we haven't been able to respond. I don't know of a time on the tribe when we haven't been able to respond. And the reason for that is because, and I didn't mention it, but the intensity of their calls, we don't get called to the tribe unless it's a hot call. So normally, like, let's say we're on an animal call in Clarkdale, that takes priority. And now it definitely takes priority because we're covered. And so I can't recall of one that we weren't able to respond to on the tribe. But certainly other agencies, for instance, if there's a disturbance, and we're already on another disturbance, we're not able to go. And those happen more frequently in Cottonwood and Jerome than they do on sovereign land.
Thank you.
Well,
Any other questions for Chief on this? This is huge. I mean, it actually, once we got everybody to the table and we could all meet, it moved along really fast, which is very nice to see that happen. And I really have to, in some respects, say that Tanya probably pushed it, Tanya Lewis, the tribal chair, to get this done, particularly during her time as tribal chair, because that's coming to an end here in September. So I'm glad to see that happen. But
if I may, Mayor, though, don't cut yourself short. You
Mhm.
did a really good job as well. Thank you so much.
relationships, that's what it's about, is relationships on both sides. But I think within, I could have a great relationship with her, but she's got to be able to move her staff to move fast, and they didn't. And actually, they really did, getting the lawyer and the police chief here to get us to sit down and just get it done. And that was very comfortable.
And the
Just-
timing is good because I was noticing on my calendar that Friday is the 60-day expiration.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good timing.
That also worked in our favor, also. But again, you know, the complicated part of this and why this is important is that our whole dispatch system, whether it's between us and how we respond to calls on the Clarkdale community or any calls, it really highlighted for me the need to really move forward with the central dispatch discussion, Yavapai County. And because it's crazy making to think that a call would come in one place, it has to go back to another place, they have to get an approval, then it has to come back here. And if it's an emergency, that's time. And that's what really highlighted was even the police chief for the Yavapai Apache Nation was unclear as there was a discussion going back between the two of them, between our chief and their chief as to how did this really work? And to me, for dispatch, that's crazy. That's a person's life that could be in trouble.
Does this change the dispatch process now?
No.
No, okay.
But what it does is there is a county dispatch study that has been done. It's been kind of crawling along. There's been some resistance to it. But I have been assured by the county sheriff that this is going to come up to the political level, which means the electeds, so we can have a good discussion. And that'll all help in these mutual aid situations.
Just to clarify though, what it did do as it relates to dispatch is, just so the public understands, usually, you know, the call comes in and it either goes to Cottonwood or goes to Camp Verde. It should go to Camp Verde, but sometimes it'll come to Cottonwood. Then it gets forwarded to Camp Verde's dispatch. Camp Verde dispatches the Nation, and if they are too far out and it's a critical, and the chief used the word hot, but you know, they're not dispatching us for a loose dog. They're dispatching us for domestic violence or something like that. So then that chief will say, hey, we can't respond. We don't have anybody in good proximity. Can you please dispatch Clarkdale? They give that message to Camp Verde, who then calls Cottonwood, and then Cottonwood dispatches us. And so what's changing is this on our part needing to know that the chief approved it. Because I'm like, do you want us to call you in the middle of the night? Because I'm not sending an officer out risking that something bad happens and then them saying, oh, you weren't really legally allowed to be there. We can't have that. And so the way the new agreement reads is if we get dispatched, it's with the assumption that we're authorized to be
Right.
there. And that's what changed it.
That's the
Nothing in the
huge
process, just the authority
authority.
comes
If-
from being
yeah,
dispatched, not from tracking down who told us to be there.
Yes.
Because there's just too many variables that could go south. You know, we might get dispatched from Cottonwood and they never called the Nation. And I can't risk that happens and they go out there and then they're not legally able to be there. So that was the change, not the actual dispatch, but it
Yes.
did bring to light the need
Need for that. But
for
the
the-
authority was the biggest part of this, was that we have authority to be there and first on scene and not in that backup position.
I just want to say, I always appreciate any mutual aid agreement that we have with any of our neighboring communities, and this one is of no exception. It's vital for policing and coverage of our citizens and constituents. So with that, will you take a motion?
I sure will, if
I
there's
can
no
get
other
back
questions.
to it.
But before the motion, I need to clarify something, Marty, because I don't know that I was completely transparent. We will respond to the tribe when that hot call comes in. But if it's a man with a gun, we're not going there alone. And so we will take people, our staffing, from bed or from their home or from someplace else, because we're not sending just one person there. And if Cottonwood's tied up and Jerome's tied up and the sheriff's department's tied up, then we have to. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So sometimes there's a delayed response because we don't want just one officer going down there for
Yeah.
some question. Yeah, yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Yes, I'll
Sorry
take
about
a,
that.
no, that's fine. Yes, I'll take a motion.
I move that we approve the mutual aid agreement between the Yavapai Apache Nation and the town of Clarkdale for mutual aid, use of law enforcement personnel and resources.
Is there a second?
I'll
Okay.
second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Hensetter and second by Councilmember Jones to approve the mutual aid agreement between the Yavapai Apache Nation and the town of Clarkdale for mutual aid use of law enforcement personnel and resources. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Yay, Chief, a huge accomplishment. Yay. Okay, let's move on to future agenda items. We have items in front of us for May. Right now, it looks a little light, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of other things that'll be on there.
On that May 13th meeting, we will do a preliminary presentation of the budget.
Right, preliminary, budget preliminary, good, Robin. Preliminary budget will be presented. Anything else that anybody wishes to bring up?
Mayor, I just want to add that on the May 27th meeting, we also will be planning to adopt the tentative budget.
Right. Preliminary and tentative budget. Okay. Anything else? Any other items for future agenda you want to bring up that's not here? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Pearson, second by Vice Mayor Hunstetter to adjourn the meeting at 3:47 PM. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you so much, all of you who were here for budget work session and for council meeting. So thank you.